Hey y'all, welcome back to According to My Calculations with your host, Brooke Castle, your forever host. So sorry in advance. All right, let's get down to business for this week. I actually have an agenda, surprise, surprise. Um, I did create like an actual weekly agenda of what we can come to expect from each episode. Every time I have run through this, even on my handwritten notes, I keep putting the word session into my head for every session. These are episodes. We are in a different field at the moment, so bear with me. Um, I wanted to quickly go over what the agenda will look like, so you can kind of know what to expect. As far as like a posting schedule, like we talked about last week, I think one of the easiest timelines, deadlines for me is to make sure that things are uploaded like by Monday because Monday is the day that I have a little bit of a later start. So in the worst case scenario, my weekend gets swept away. I can film as needed and get everything saved, edited, and uploaded Mondays. Um, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about like doing how I'm going to be like pushing things out, promoting them, things like that here coming up. But I did just want to chat about the agenda. So our agenda is going to look like this. Um, we're going to start with a weekly review, which is basically going to be a recap of things that have happened in the past week, whether it's just like goings on within my life or like an update from something we talked about in the last episode that I want to kind of give an update on. For example, this agenda. That'll be our first thing. We'll start with the weekly review. Then we'll move on to the book log segment, which is just basically going to be me talking about what book I'm currently reading, if there's anything that is exciting going on, or questions that I'm like, hey, have you read this? What are your thoughts on it? Recommendations on books, anything book related will come in the book log segment. Following book log, we will be doing a segment called new material, which will be anything new, upcoming, exciting things to share. Not always exciting, just new, essentially. And then after new material, I will have a segment called lesson learned, which, if you remember, one of my big pushes to start this podcast was the fact that going into meetings with potential clients, my big push has always been that, like, I love learning. I love learning from the perspective of learning about new things, learning how to do new things, learning why there are things, just all of the learning. And so I'm actually doing this segment of lesson learned to, yes, chat about the lessons that I've learned in my lifetime and just exciting things that I've learned about this week, but also to find a way to almost challenge myself. Like, even if it's just the smallest thing, like look back upon my week and decide what is something that I learned within this past week, whether it was intentional or not intentional. Like, what is something that I learned? Like, I think that if I can always continue learning, then I'm going to be in a great position to always continue to grow. Um, Again, I'm not talking about like learning about a new type of math all the time. It's going to be like just things that are learned, right? Within the lesson learned segment, there's also going to be times where we will have real world connections. The real world connections are going to be on the episodes that we have a guest, whether it is an in person guest hanging out here with me in the studio, my office, or if it is a virtual guest where I will just include like a clip of the segment that they record with me. Either way, that will be our real world connection because I want to include that in the lesson learned segment because I want it to like I want us to be able to chat about a lesson that they have learned. It's kind of the whole purpose of coming onto the podcast is to share something that it is that you've learned recently, whether it's recently or not, just like something big that you feel like you can share with others, right? It's kind of the whole purpose here. Um After the lesson learned segment, I have a segment entitled Answer Key, where I will give you kind of like a behind the scenes look, whether that's like behind the scenes of my business, behind the scenes of like a certain session, just kind of sharing like the answers that I found, right? I found that, like we talked about last week, I found that using Apple's send later option for text messages has really benefited me for not having to wake up at 6 a.m. on Fridays and prep text messages to go out, right? So something like that, like an behind the scenes look at like things I found that have helped me to drive my success further. And then last but not least, every episode we will end with, naturally, a homework assignment. So get excited, get out your notebooks, let's take some notes, let's go through our calculations. All right. So that's part of this week's weekly review, is kind of recapping on, we talked about having the agenda last week. So there's part of it. In addition to the agenda, I also wanted to talk about, which is kind of a little bit of an update on, like, we had chatted last week about going into the new year, not really New Year's resolutions, but just kind of like things that I wanted to do more of, and then my like 31 days to turning 31, and just things that I wanted to kind of incorporate in my everyday. And one of those big things was social media. I feel like I've always wanted to do more on social media. Time has always been a big constraint. But outside of like time, I also just feel like social media has been very split for me. I've always found, like, I've had my Facebook page since I was in seventh grade. In middle school, like, my Facebook is very much so like my family members, my people I know in real life, like the neighbor down the street, like in my own community, people I've worked with in the past, in office jobs, people I went to school with. But now, as I've grown my business, it's also clients of mine. It's also where I find new clients. Like, I have a business page on Facebook. So I feel like Facebook is very like real life, if that makes sense. Whereas like other social medias. Now, mind you, I do have an account on almost every social media platform, I'm pretty sure. Like the basics, like Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, YouTube, whatever. But I do want to try to be more active across the board. So I'm trying to incorporate like my presence across all of them and kind of be a little bit more, I don't know if this is the right term, but a little bit more like balanced and shared across them all. So when it came to like the start of me being on like TikTok and Instagram and things that, for me, I feel like the platform is a lot wider, right? Like Facebook is very local, is very like, if I can see you at the grocery store, you're probably on my Facebook, right? Whereas I feel like TikTok and Instagram, like, you can connect with people literally across the globe. Now, not that you can't do that on Facebook. It's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, in my brain, that's how I associate them. So when I'm on TikTok and I post like a silly little video or like some photos with like a cute music background, and then Facebook is more like update and like personal. So I'm trying to find a way to like balance the two. And I want to, like I said, I want to grow all of them. Like, I want to do more here on YouTube. I want to do more with my Instagram. I want to kind of have them in an equal place across the board. Um, so I'm trying to work more on like including things for all of them. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because this past week I actually had three different instances that social media was brought up in my everyday. Um, First and foremost, on Monday, I filmed a day in life video, and it was super fun. Like, did a little vlog. It was super, super fun. I had a ton of fun with it, but I thought it was interesting to that during my day in life, I had a meeting with a new potential client. So this client was, it was a very unique situation because I had actually worked with their family a couple of summers ago, specifically for summer sessions. So it wasn't anything that we ever designed to like go into the school year and be recurring. It was specifically for that summer to kind of get students caught back up and make sure they're not missing any gaps that summer. And then now, a couple years later, they were interested in pulling one of their students to do homeschool. And the dad, when we sat down to go over like questions and scheduling and all of that, the dad had mentioned to me that he actually came across my TikTok and had seen an older, like, spend the day with me as a private tutor or day in the life of a private tutor videos. And it came across his TikTok feed, and he was like, "Oh yeah, Brooke, like, we should reach out to her." Because in the video I talked about going and doing homeschool sessions. So I thought that was really neat. Another new client I actually met with them today, but we had started chatting earlier this week, and in the midst of us chatting, like, she reached out on Facebook. I don't know if somebody had tagged me or um, how exactly she came across my page, but in like a local group, she was seeking out a tutor, and somebody recommended me. And when we were chatting, like early stages, like, what grade is your kid in? Here's my pricing. There's the schedule. Like, early stages, we hadn't even committed to meeting yet. she reached back out and was like, "Oh, hey, I was just on your business page and noticed that one of your followers is so and so, and she's a good friend of mine." Reached out to her, and she was like, "Yeah, they've worked with my family for years now." And so it's always fun to see like those little connections happen. Like, I live in New Braunfels, Texas, and it has this very like small town feel as it's growing at a crazy exponential rate. But like, it's always funny to see those little like small town pieces come back on moments like that. It's always fun to like kind of just see all of that coming together. And with that, that brings me to my third example of social media being brought up. Yesterday, when I was confirming schedules with clients, one of my parents had reached out to me, and we were kind of joking back and forth, and she was like, if tutoring ever doesn't pan out for you long term in the future, you should consider becoming an influencer, because I know a certain somebody in my household that anytime you bring something up that you've ordered recently or looking to order, she immediately is like, "Oh, Brooke has this. We need to get one." So it just was funny that the way that she mentioned it, and like it was cute to be like, "Oh, positive role model, whatever." But it really got me thinking, like, and again, I am in no way seeking to use my platforms to become an influencer. I'm in no way looking to leave tutoring. That is not what I mean here. But I keep using air quotes around the word influencer, because again, that's not my goal here. My goal is to just continue to share things that I'm learning every single day. But with that comment that she'd made, it kind of brings us into my my new material segment, because I wanted to take a look at um like my presence on social media and even on this platform. So it kind of like gave me an idea to go there. Now, before we get into new material, I do want to quickly go back over my book log. So if you remember from last week, I had a very long, not very long, but I had quite literally like a mental stack of books that were like TBR style, like to be read. And I was so torn between them, because two of them, like, I want to read them so I can watch this movie, and I'm really want to watch the movie, but I haven't read the book, and on and on and on. But literally and figuratively, literally, I have shelved majority of the TBR over here behind me, and I'm focusing on Good Girl Bad Blood, because I've already started the book. I'm only like 3 chapters in, but I've already started it. So I'm gonna keep myself there. I'm gonna keep in the book, and I'm also going to challenge myself at least this week, just to kind of see how it goes and go from there. To A lot of my students have homework assignments of reading 20 minutes a night. They can read 20 minutes a night. I can read 20 minutes a night, right? I'm setting that goal at 20 minutes because I know myself. And if I get to a certain chapter and it's been past 20 minutes, I'll just keep on reading. So I'm hoping it goes that route, but the goal is 20. I want to do 20 minutes a night. So that's the challenge I'm giving myself this week, just because I want to kind of start like having reading be like a purposeful thing for me again. Um, I also wanted to, on that same note, I am really excited because tomorrow is Sunday. This week, Monday is Martin Luther King Jr. Day, which is a school holiday, which means that I have to nanny. And nannying during nap time, I usually read for like an hour. It's fantastic. So I'm very excited about that. So I'll have plenty of time to read tomorrow. But yeah, so moving into our new material for the week. Like I said, one of the big new materials that I wanted to cover this week was my presence on social media. I want to kind of chat about like the ideals that I have when it comes to my presence. Now, I exist in my students' lives and my clients' lives and my friends, family, whoever, but I keep talking about students as a top priority because that's who I'm directly working with, right? So I exist in my students' lives on a very real aspect. I see a lot of my students minimum once a week, if not more than that, several times a week. So I do see my like in person. However, I also know that when it comes to my social media, not my entire platform, but a good majority of my platform is students and clients and people I know in the real world. So I want to make sure that like my presence here, my presence there are both pretty equal. Um, I do try to make a key point to prioritize the way that I present myself in front of my students. Like I always try to make sure that I am kind of like an open door policy. Like I'm all ears for anything they have to come to me, they have to share with me. There's no judgment pass. There is just like, hey, let's, you have questions, let's talk about them, whether it's about the material or just life questions. Like I try to make sure that I am an open and honest, relatable persona for the not persona, but like person for them, because I want to be that option that they can go to when they need somebody. And I want to make sure that here that exists the same way, just in a virtual version, right? Um, I know we hear a lot about how social media is like a highlight reel. We see on social media, we see all of the wonderful celebrations and announcements and positivity. Unfortunately, a lot of the negativity is either like kind of very deep, dark, and very negative, or just like left off. And sometimes it's not even negativity. Sometimes it's just neutrality, right? Like sometimes it's just the base zero. Like some things don't, not everything has to be exciting and fun. Not everything has to be deep, dark, and terrible, but sometimes it's okay to just not feel our best and not be doing our best. I was chatting with a student the other day about receiving a low grade when it was not anticipated based on their study habit and everything they had prepared for. And sometimes it just happens. I mean, there are things we can do. We can make corrections. We can do a review. We can, sometimes people will offer us retests or whatever it may be, whether it's in school or in life. But sometimes it just is what it is. And that's what we have to accept. We have to be okay and be comfortable with that failure in a sense, right? We have to be comfortable with it not working out in our favor all the time. Um, and that's terrifying. It's scary to sit here and say that, like, hey, I can do all the prep work and I can do all the planning and I can do everything that I want to have in order, and it may not work out in my favor. But that's okay because that's how life is. And so when it comes to my presence here on my podcast, on my YouTube, on my social media, in real life, for my clients, for my friends, for whoever, I want to make sure that my presence is real. I try to stay positive, I try to stay encouraging, but at the very baseline, I want to maintain that realness, right? Um, I have to include that, sometimes the fun, exciting, everything is so bubbly is not really the case, right? Like, um, for example, yesterday I was at a client's house, and during our session, we were sitting in the kitchen having our session. We're doing some review for an upcoming test, and somebody, a service provider, not anybody, like not my client, but a service provider that came to their home to provide a service, much like I was, came in the driveway and accidentally backed into my truck. Uh, Very quickly, everything is okay. Nobody was hurt. My truck was not like totally damaged. But my brake light and my back fender bumper, whatever the phrase is, um, are both messed up. Now, when I say my brake light, it's like the cover of it, like the bulb itself is still working. But anyways, um, it's frustrating, right? It's frustrating that happened because that was not something I was planning on. I was in the middle of a session. I still had three other sessions for the evening. Like it was frustrating. Um, but at the end of the day, I was very blessed and very grateful for the fact that my truck, like not just my truck, but just in general, like that could have gone way worse, right? Somebody could have been injured. Somebody, more things could have been damaged. Something besides just a truck could have been damaged. Like I'm very grateful for the way that things came out. But on the flip side of that, like it was frustrating, and even if, when I say it was frustrating, still frustrating, right? It's still, going forward is stressful. It's still scheduling, going to the body shop, not knowing how long my truck may be out of commission, right? Like, is it going to be something I can drop it off in the morning and, take a couple hours myself, do some grade check, and then pick it back up? Or am I actually going to have to miss out on sessions or reschedule or change things around? Like, I don't know. I don't have that answer. And that's terrifying. It's frustrating. And it does not bring me any kind of joy or peace. Like, but again, I'm taking that breath to just say, like, it could be way worse. And I'm in a very blessed position that I'm in, but I am allowed to be frustrated. We're all allowed to be frustrated. It's allowed to not be okay, right? Like, I think that's a common phrase that we have come to almost learn. And it's almost like a learned behavior of like, oh, it's okay. It's just almost a natural response, right? When somebody says, thank you, you say you're welcome. When somebody sneezes, you say bless you. When somebody says, I'm sorry, you say it's okay. It's okay for it to not be okay, right? It's okay for somebody to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Thanks for apologizing, right? Like it's okay for it to just not be okay. And I think that's an important lesson to learn. Um, so another thing I wanted to mention in our new material for the week is here in South Central Texas in the coming days, we may have snow. I was recently chatting with a cashier at a store I was at earlier today, and they mentioned of like the potential snow coming up was brought up, and it's like possibly Monday night into Tuesday, and whether it sticks or it doesn't, or how much it'll be, and all of those things. And, I feel like the grand idea of like a snowy winter wonderland and playing in the snow and the snowman and snowball fights and playing with my dogs in the snow, it all sounds fun and fantastic and wonderful. But then the like human adult side comes into it. And it's like, I think about the last time that it froze really bad in Texas and like the power grids went out, so nobody had power. You can't just up and go to the grocery store whenever you need something because they're probably all closed. You can't run to the corner store because they're all closed. Like, not pumped about that. Nobody in this area is equipped, prepared, or experienced enough to be able to drive in snow, so that's terrifying too. Like, you don't want to go anywhere. So yeah, that's one of those other things. It's like it's okay to feel excited about it. It's also okay to be mortally terrified of it. Um, okay, so the next segment we have on our list is our lesson learned for the week. As much as I've talked about many lessons of like my presence in the world and how I want to showcase myself and how I want to be remembered and known as, and also it's okay to not be okay. No, the lesson I want to talk about this week, which is so funny when I think about all the other things that I've brought up so far. Um, I have over time as a tutor for the past several years, I have grown. Oh no, hold on. Pause. Let's see. Okay. A little hiccup there, but I thought I had stopped recording, but everything is fine. So over the past several years, I have taught myself to write upside down because whenever I have my like whiteboard or my iPad and I'm trying to show my student, instead of having to like write it myself and turn it around and back and forth, I've learned how to just be able to write upside down and read upside down as well. And I was like, man, do you know how convenient it would be to also be able to write left-handed, right? Like, and when I say write left-handed, you see my left hand move around a lot, but that's because it is not good at anything else. Okay. It is good at holding a watch and holding my wedding ring. And besides that, that's about it. I struggle painting my right hand with my left hand. I can't eat with my left hand. Like my left hand is purely decoration purposes, right? Um, I can sign with my left hand though. Like, anyways, that's besides the point. So I was thinking about it and I was like, man, like I feel like the writing upside down was a big, like conveniently like helped me long term. But I'm like, if I could write with my left hand, that would make my life not so much easier, but I do feel like it'd be a lot more convenient. Like I could be like working on something and like write with his hand. So, anyways, I was just kind of like joking about that with a student, and we were talking about handwriting anyways because the student's handwriting is not quite the best. We were talking about handwriting in general, and I was using my left hand, and I was like, wait a second, and I realized that as foreign as my left hand is, and like even like holding the pencil feels wrong, right? Like I can't even like grip it the right way. If I'm writing upside down, perfectly fine. Apparently, I can write with my left hand, just only upside down. So that's the lesson that I learned this week. I hope that you learned something fun, new, and exciting about yourself too. I will be 31 in less than 2 weeks, and yeah, I can write my left hand only upside down. um, all right, now for our answer key segment. Again, answer key is not giving you all the answers, but taking a peek into my answer key, okay? So the first thing I wanted to talk about is, and it's going to kind of be like pulling from other pieces of the episode, but pulling back to snow, my answer key for snow. Inclement weather, things are just totally out of our control. When it comes to me scheduling sessions, if kids have a dentist appointment, doctor's appointment, let's say that something comes up and they have to cancel because they're sick or whatever, I have cancellation policies in place for that. I have a policy for, depending on if you cancel within 24 hours, if you're canceling day of, if you are not canceling but rescheduling, I have policies in place for that. All of those things covered. We're good. If I'm sick and I don't feel well, I have options. We can Zoom. I can reschedule. I have options. I have plans. Snow in Texas? No. The last time we had the huge big freeze, I actually still went and tutored. Um, Probably shouldn't have driven, but that's besides the point. I went and did like 3 in-person sessions that day, and then I went home for the evening. I did Zooms with the rest of the kids that didn't want me to come over. Like I kept going. I don't know. And then it was like it came up to like a weekend where, and at this time I was still working from home and tutoring, so I didn't have people like on my schedule, and I kept working from home because I had the ability to do so whenever my power was on. So I feel like going into this potential snowstorm, I'm like, that I don't know. Like, I mean, I've got 3 options, right? And ultimately, the decision will also lie in the hands of the parent. Um, as much as obviously the children's say so is important, if they have a test or a quiz or something I need to go over, yes, I also need to make sure that the student's safety and my safety are top priority, right? Because if you're worried about a quiz and school's going to be canceled because of snow, probably don't need to worry about the quiz. We'll make sure that everybody stays safe. So that's the top priority is our safety. Education, we can always figure back out, but our safety is our top priority. So ultimately, all of my clients that fall within this bad weather will have the option to keep their session and I'll make it out if it's safe enough for me to do so. Um, Cancel their session and we can reschedule it for later, or we can Zoom. If kids aren't even in school, then we can just keep a Zoom session and go over material that way. Whatever may work. My thinking with like canceling sessions, if roads are like bad enough where people don't want to drive or don't want me to drive, then I think about like if schools are closed, the family I nanny for, I only nanny right now on school holidays. So I'm like, I don't really know. But then it kind of rolls into like the parents I nanny for, if they're going to work or not. Because if they're not going to work and school is closed, then obviously they would not need me there. But so it's so funny to see like there's so many factors to decide all of these random little things. So yeah, that's my answer key. And the answer key is unfortunately, I don't have the answer. Um, but yes, I do have those 3 options for everybody. Everybody will be presented the same 3 options. Monday, I don't have any conflicts because the weather's not supposed to get bad until Monday evening. Tuesday, I've already sent out my confirmation, so the people that are on my books for Tuesday already know where they stand. And then as the weather as the weather gets updated, I'll reach out to them again tomorrow. Well, not tomorrow because we won't know much more about the weather tomorrow. So Monday morning, I will follow up and say like, hey, looking into tomorrow. Basically, I'll follow the way that the schools go. If the schools have canceled, we'll go from there and kind of decide because it also changes our scheduling, right? If somebody can't meet me until 4:30 because that's when I get home from school, and now they're out of school, that kind of affects that too. Um, Social media, another thing that I wanted to give kind of an answer key opinion on is I again, we talked about kind of sharing across the board. I used to keep TikTok for like, hey, this is where I'll just share all of like the fun random things. And Instagram I barely ever looked at. And Facebook was like business and like very personal things. And now I'm trying to just kind of like clean it up and streamline it. So the very first episode that I recorded, I posted a clip to my Instagram story, my Facebook story, my TikTok, and then shared on YouTube, and then just did like stories, like quick shares, and I got decent views on that. And then I did my last episode, I just uploaded to Spotify and YouTube. So if you weren't subscribed to my YouTube or subscribed to my Spotify, you wouldn't have been notified that I posted it. If you went and sought it out, fantastic, you would have found it. Did not do very well on that episode, which kind of was an experiment, so I'm not disappointed in it. And I didn't really cover that much important stuff, anyways. But yeah, so for this week, I'm going to like full force, like commit to sharing it everywhere and not just like stories. I'm going to post like an actual like Facebook post like, hey friends, I have started a podcast, here's the link. Like, so I'm excited to see like I've done it organically, I've done it quick share, and I'm going to try to do one where it's like a full share. I don't want to be overwhelming and annoying, but I also think that this is an exciting thing and I'm excited about it. And I want y'all to be excited about it too. So, however you find me, whether you follow me on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or Facebook or just Spotify, however it is that you find me and listen along, first of all, just know that I'm super, super grateful for you. If you follow along on all of them, that's fantastic. If you follow along on one thing or you just found me today, that's equally as fantastic. I'm excited to have you here. I'm excited to keep doing this. I'm excited to keep learning and growing. Um, I ultimately just kind of want to end this whole episode today with, of course, our homework assignment for the week. My homework assignment for the week for you guys is to learn something new on purpose. Go out of your way to research something you don't know much about. If you're interested in something, go out of your way to figure out how it works or how you could do something more. Whether it's like a hobby you want to start, I'm not telling you to go jump ship and start a whole new hobby over the weekend, but do some research on it. See if it's actually something that will interest you or something that you will be looking forward to, like seeing how that could or might work, right? So I encourage you to go out of your way to learn something new on purpose. Aside from that, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. Stay safe, stay warm, and stay calculating. Bye.